This is Rock and Roll Ghost, and we're joined today by director Julius Ramsay of the Hulu film series Into the Dark. The Current Occupant is his installment. And how are you doing today, Julius?
I'm doing really great. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real pleasure.
Oh, no, thank you. And you're on the West Coast?
I'm actually on the East Coast right now.
Oh,
I'm in
okay.
North Carolina. Yeah,
North Carolina.
My family lives here. This is where I'm originally from.
Okay. I feel like I just talked to somebody that was Virginia. Never mind. My grandparents actually lived in North Carolina for a while.
Where?
Well, past near Asheville in
Oh,
Hendersonville.
I'm actually up in the mountains. I don't know if you can see outside, but I'm in the mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains. So I'm
Okay. Yeah, they were kind of in a
from
wooded area too. They were kind of near this town called Brevard.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so I got to know North Carolina a little bit.
It's a great state.
Yeah, granted that was a while ago, but
Mhm.
well, let me first get into talking about the film. How did you first get involved with the project?
I had, a bit of a relationship with Blumhouse because I had done an episode of the television series The Purge, the television version of that. And then we had actually met a few times about some different Into the Dark films that they were doing. And then there was this particular idea for a movie that my brother and I had that when we mentioned to them, they got very excited. So that's what led to the first conversations about the movie.
Okay, and you said your brother was involved too. Did he stay involved throughout the process?
Yeah, my brother wrote the movie and was
a
producer on the project. So
yeah. I not the same last name.
Yep, Ramsay, Ramsay, Alston.
Why did I think? I apologize. I thought.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
I thought there was a completely different name for the screenplay.
No. My brother, he wrote the screenplay, and my brother has as well as screenwriting, he also has a history as a political speechwriter. He worked for the Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, for 4.5 years, and then was stationed in Afghanistan for a year with General Petraeus. So he has a pretty extensive background in government and speech writing and like leadership on that level prior to his career as a screenwriter. So that was really that intersection with my love of horror, and it was a real marriage and partnership of the synthesis of those two ideas.
Okay. And where did how did you actually come up with the concept itself?
It was something, we had actually bounced it around for a couple of years. It was, the Cliff Note idea of it being a patient in a mental asylum who begins to suspect that he may not be the president of the United States. I mean, that was the hook. That was the original idea. And so my brother and I, as we were talking to Blumhouse, each of the films that they do one per month, and each one is based on a holiday that occurs that month, loosely affiliated sometimes. In our case, it was for the July 4th holiday, of course. And so we had the kind of 5-minute, elevator pitch version of it. And then the two of us, spent a lot of time talking and developing the concept, and then gave a much more detailed version of the story to Blumhouse, and they got really excited, and so everybody decided to we would go make the movie. And then my brother, he went off and rolled up his sleeves and wrote the movie.
Yeah. Now, how much experience with writing had he had prior to this, as far as movies or TV or anything?
Well, he actually wrote. So we did an independent feature film, like a thriller, about 3 years ago. And so my brother, he also wrote that movie.
Okay.
So he's had, this is the second film that he's actually had made, and as well as being a writer, he produced the original film and was executive producer on this one. And it's like numerous other screenplays and other material. So he's quite a prolific writer.
Okay, wow, that's cool. It's interesting to go from the background that he had to making films.
I guess the politics of Hollywood are a little less brutal than those of Washington, D.C. these days.
When did you start filming The Current Occupant?
We started filming, gosh, I think we started filming February 2nd or 3rd, if memory serves. And we finished filming, I want to say it was just about 2 weeks before they shut down the state of California because of the pandemic. So we were really lucky that we managed to get everything in the can prior to the shutdown.
So it was a pretty brief shoot.
Yeah, I mean, the shoot was a 16-day shoot total.
Okay.
So that's for a feature film, that's definitely quite.
That's fast. A lot. I mean, that's not much. I mean, but now you're the second person I've talked to that made a movie in about as many days. So, so I'm not really surprised at this point.
Yeah.
Especially when you're probably on a limited budget. But what? Describe the concept itself is very, I hate to use the word simple, but succinct.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much one location, I mean, there's different places within that location that it's filmed. For the most part, it's set, in one area, one place, this hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So did you go in with them like a minimalist idea based on the fact that, number one, the story dictated it, number two, the budget probably and the time probably dictated it, right?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, the entire concept of the film was designed around the parameters that we knew would be part of making this film for Into the Dark. It was conceived and developed with all of that in mind, that, in large part it was a single location. And we knew that that's something that we felt that we could do and we could do well within the limited time frame. So it was all really conceived and baked into the movie from the get-go.
Yeah. Was there anything that you wished you could have done that you just, because of time and what have you, budgetary limitations, just couldn't do? Or was it just that you had it so succinct and ready to go with the way that you were expecting to film that you didn't really go for anything far out there at any point to get nixed?
I mean, look, there's always, every day that one shoots, it's a war of attrition, and there's certain shots and things I want to do that I can't do just because there's only so many hours in the day. So I would say there were many things, countless things that I would love to have done if I had more time. That said, I think it's a real, it's a question for any director. I had a friend once, and he said, he had a saying that the best shots in tennis are because of the lines. And I think that's true. Sometimes the parameters are what force you to be creative and force you to make choices out of necessity that wound up being really cool, creative decisions.
Well, I think that's I think that's indicative in most cases, especially when you don't have the budget or the time.
Yeah.
I mean, my go-tos for this are Spielberg with Jaws. The shark didn't work, so basically the whole movie had to kind of be reframed.
Right,
and it turned out to be a blessing.
Totally, and you think of the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm looking at your T-shirt with Phantom Menace, and look, God bless George Lucas. The guy's a genius. What he created no one can ever take that away from them, nor should they. It certainly transformed the way I viewed cinema. But yeah, The Phantom Menace, it is not a perfect movie. I'll leave it at that. And like, you go back and look at, and like, that's a situation where there were literally no limitations whatsoever on what you could do. And you just wonder, like, does it have the same, it doesn't have the same like gritty, raw, like drive that, you know, a film like Star Wars or Empire had.
Right.
And I think,
well, I mean, you know, you think about it, not that he had limitless money on Empire or even Jedi, but he controlled those films and they still turned out very well, you know, like, because he was, I mean, he was essentially self-producing those films, and at that point Fox was just a distributor.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it wasn't like he was in the position he was by the time Phantom came along, which is where he has billions. I mean, literally billions. And that was also still,
he had the toy store. He wasn't just a kid in the toy store. He had the toy store.
He owned a chain of toy stores. He had all the toy stores. I mean, you know, I don't know if you've ever read the the Unauthorized History of Star Wars.
There's a book. I'm pretty sure I know which one you're talking about. I have read it. It's been a while.
It's amazing, but it gets a lot into his wife, Marcia Lucas, who was an editor.
Right.
Some of the most iconic, like, little scenes. There's a scene in the first Star Wars where this little droid thing is rolling on the ground and it bumps into Chewbacca and he goes, and the thing hits him and like, ooh, like flees off. Like, there was stuff like that they were like, oh, we need to cut. We don't need this. And she's like, no. That's the movie. That's the movie. Same with Indiana Jones. The final scene with him and Marion Davies when they're on the stairs and he says, like, oh, you want to get a drink? And they kind of get a drink and walk up on the stairs. That wasn't in the original film. So apparently reading with Lucas, Spielberg, Coppola, and Marcia Lucas, and they're watching it and they get done like, oh, it's great. You know, you see the thing with the Ark and the warehouse at the end. And Marcia's like, no, hold on, boys. Like, we didn't wrap up like his story arc with Marion. Like, we need that. And they're like, oh my God, you're right. And so they went and shot that. I think it was like LA County Library or something.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's, you know, you think
he had other people in there that I think helped keep things in check. Even though he controlled a lot, there were still checks and balances, you know.
But that still was at still the earlier part of his career, and I used to be not to get sidetracked on George Lucas, I guess, but I used to be a really big defender of Phantom Menace, and my least favorite one of all the Star Wars, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan, obviously, was Attack of the Clones, because it always felt like the like a TV series when. You know, it was like just like maybe this is just happening this week, and because nothing in Attack of the Clones ever felt like it had anything to do with anything. No. In my opinion, it's cool in a lot of parts, but I'm like, I always watch it. I'm like, but this does nothing to the story. I mean, it's just like it's there, and then he decides to make the Clone War an animated show, and it's like, well, that's what kind of people were hoping to see. I mean. Why wouldn't that be the middle film? But regardless, you know, but I've kind of come back around to the Phantom Menace has a lot of problems, but I still love Liam Neeson in it.
Oh, he's great. He's great. And Darth Maul is a pretty great villain.
Darth Maul might be, I mean, I think aside from Darth Vader is probably the coolest Star Wars villain ever.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, and I got to meet Ray Park once, and he was a really nice guy, but regardless. So you did this in February, finished right around March. The editing, I'm gathering, was all done virtually.
It was, yeah. I left the state of California a few days after the lockdown was implemented.
Yeah.
So I was in a little town in the mountains of Arizona. So I worked remotely with an editor, an assistant editor, and we did it all ourselves. And it was a lot of work. There were a lot of technical hurdles to get over, and it was very, very time consuming.
I was talking to Well, I was talking to two different people, but Rick Romanois, who has Greenland out like overseas, and it's coming out next month, and he was talking about how that, you know, he was putting together all the effects and everything while everything was in lockdown. So, you know, it's just a whole different series. You know, it's the same thing, except you're orchestrating via computer everything, you know, which is its own, you know, hurdle, because normally everybody would be together.
Yeah, and there, you know, especially for me and the editor, Thad Nirsky, who was brilliant, did a great job with this. I think for us, it was just tough because there's the director editor relationship is so collaborative, and there's so much you know, communication that goes on, and I feel that, you know, 80% of human communication is really nonverbal, and it's being in a room and seeing somebody and talking and play and stop and, you know, note cards up, and we didn't get to do any of that, and we got through it, and we did a great. I mean, I think he did a great job, and I'm proud of the work I did. But there's a part of it that we both really wished, you know, we just had that time in the room where you're doing it all, and then, you know, you take a break and everybody has lunch together, and then you go back.
When you kind of hash things out, and
and then, you know, I love when I'm in editing rooms, we'll get to a certain point, and then we might bring in somebody, you know, who works in the office and be like, hey, will you come in and you don't know anything about this, just watch this and tell us what you think. And like that, those kinds of interactions that you don't get with a remote editing setup. That said, you know, especially in a place like Los Angeles, you don't have traffic. I mean, you don't ever drive anywhere. You roll out of bed in the morning, you know, make some breakfast, and boom, you're working. That's pretty nice. I mean, I did the whole film from Arizona, and granted, it was a terrible pandemic at play, but you know, after 2 months, we locked picture, and then I drove to North Carolina to see family, and I continued working for almost another month as we did all the music and sound and everything. And that to me was really great, in the sense that I'm able to be with my family and, you know, be in a place where, as you can see, there's nature and all of that had this been occurring, you know, in the normal run of things, I would have been in LA, like, you know, spending half the day driving around to various like meetings and appointments and all of it.
Right.
So it's a new world, and I don't think the, you know, from the editing post-production workflow, I don't think it will ever go back to what it was 5 or 6 months ago.
Really?
No. I mean, that's just me, but I have lots of funny views about this that.
Well, I mean, I think my personal view is eventually we're going to all get back to the way things were.
Really?
Eventually. I mean, I'm not saying a year from now, but I think eventually, I mean, I think more things will be done remotely. I think this is definitely given the idea that, a lot of what we do can be done. I've been personally working from home for almost 5 years now in my regular job. I mean, I don't need to, you know, go into the office to do what I do. You know, it's like, I don't. And I think, honestly, my company prefers it because it's, you know, somebody not taking up another desk.
Oh, yeah.
Electricity,
I mean, yeah,
you know?
anybody, like, you know, commercial real estate is, in my opinion, right now, or has been for a long time, you know, for the last few months, one of the worst businesses one could ever be in, because I don't think you have seen, I mean, you haven't seen this impactful an event on American society, like widespread in 100 years.
Right.
And if you're really
literally everybody did used to go to work, you know, and people were still back then, I mean, there wasn't anything like this today where they had the ability to stay home.
Right. And I think, you know, typically from a historical perspective, typically massive seismic disrupting events like this dramatically accelerate, you know, trends that were already in place, technological, social, cultural, political. And so I think, you know, these trends, everything was set up, and
Mhm.
there was a percentage of people that were doing it, but now,
Oh yeah, like I said, I think it's absolutely going to. It's not everybody's going to go back to the thing, but there are people out there like Oliver Stone acting like you can't even make a film anymore because it's like, come on, dude. They're, and the Russo brothers and Jordan Peele are starting to work on a film.
mhm.
I don't even want to get. I had an interview with Tom Sizemore last week or 2 weeks ago, and we kind of badmouthed Oliver Stone for a while, so I don't want to get back into bashing Oliver Stone,
Yeah.
a director I used to love, but who I feel has just gone insane.
I think he was always insane. It's just more
It, it,
apparent now.
yeah, it's just like he was on the right side of insane. I think
That's
is what
true.
it used to be. Well, let me just first say that I don't think the movie. I did actually like the movie. I'm not generally a horror fan. I'll be honest with you. And this was the kind of horror film I like. Where it's not just people getting gutted every 2 seconds and blah blah blah.
Thank you.
This was my favorite type, which is psychological horror. And I think that even though he's not a household name, I think it wouldn't, as good as the film is, I don't know if the film would have worked as well as it did if you didn't have somebody like Barry Watson playing the lead role, who I thought was an incredible find and deserves, so I always love it when I feel like I found, quote unquote, found somebody new that can be really interesting in something. And then I hope to keep seeing them be interesting in other films.
Yeah.
And I thought he was just perfect in the role.
He's a champ. I mean, he's a real pro. He's obviously been in the business for quite a while, but he has such a tremendous range that when we were looking for an actor to play this character, we needed to find somebody who would actually be believable as the president, potentially the president of the United States, but also potentially believable as potentially a paranoid schizophrenic, because we're really riding the line of, is this person crazy or are they the leader of the free world throughout the movie? And so to that end, we need someone with both gravitas and vulnerability. And Barry, Barry's somebody who brought that to his work. And then more than any of those superficial things, I think, for me at least, it's very important that you have a lead that's likable. And that's a hard quality to define, and it doesn't always come across. But you think of somebody like James Gandolfini in The Sopranos. On the surface, every single thing about that character is pretty awful. Like he's he's a killer, a sociopath, a womanizer, a gambler. Like he's betrays people left and right. Like really just a bad human being.
Right.
But you like James Gandolfini, so I want to sit down and hang out with James Gandolfini every week. So I'll put up with all the other stuff, just like Michael C. Hall when he played Dexter. And I think Barry's one of those guys who he has that inherent likability that comes across on screen. And I think that's really important for making a character, especially one's lead, accessible to an audience.
Right. No, I think it really worked out well. What were you in the process of working out a deal on anything else before this happened, or are you trying to work out a deal to do something in some form at the moment? Is there anything kind of going on, or do you have something that you're going to be working on?
I do. I can't say too much about it, but
Gotcha.
I can say my brother and I have been working on a television show that we have been working on it since long before the pandemic, but it was really something very new, like a new format, a new way of television production, a new style, really like a reinvention of how one would do a narrative drama, so to speak. And many of the restrictions that have come into place with what has happened with COVID and this weird twist of fate fit with the show that we're making. So
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
knock on wood.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm glad.
I think you'll like it. It's genre. It definitely has heavy doses of science fiction. So
Okay. Cool. All right. Excellent. Will you be? I'm trying to ask you something where I think you can actually answer the question. Will you be leaving North Carolina to make it?
Yeah, I mean, when it actually is like filming and everything, then
Right.
I would imagine so, although there are a surprising number of aspects to this particular show that one could do in different kinds of remote capacity.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
What was kind of like the thing that I don't want to keep you too much longer, but what were the things that influenced you to want to become a filmmaker? Was it something you read, something you saw? I mean, and how did you actually get from being somebody that wanted to make a film to actually being somebody to make a film?
Long road. I read a lot of science fiction when I was very young. Like Arthur C. Clarke was my favorite author. And then I saw my best friend's older brother gave us a VHS copy of the Terminator. And the Terminator is probably, I'd say, my favorite film of all time. I think it's just a perfect, the original Terminator, perfect.
Yeah.
And it was really seeing that. I mean, God, I was really young, way too young to have seen it. And that's the movie that inspired me. And but I was from a little town in North Carolina, so I didn't really think about the fact that one could go off and be a filmmaker, like as a career. My family worked in textiles, and a lot of people I knew were in similar kinds of businesses. So it wasn't until I got to college that I took a filmmaking class and had a great teacher, and he helped open my eyes to the fact that there's this world of a career out there that one can pursue, and it's not easy. And I urge anybody who wants to do it that to really search themselves and find out if there's something else that makes them happy and fulfilled. Go do that, because this particular business, it's you can work your butt off, and there's still elements of like luck and chance that might determine your success, which I don't think is always true, and to as much of a degree in other industries.
Right.
And then what I did is I moved out to Los Angeles. I wanted to be a director, and but I had mapped out like a way to get into the business, and I decided to go into editing. So for me, that was my way. I got my foot in the door, and I spent a lot of years editing, and it was also a great way to learn a skill, like to learn a craft. I think if you're going to do it, I think the thing I would say, and I think this is true with anything worth doing in life, is really map out a 5-year plan. Like, this is where I want to be in 5 years, and what I'm doing today, what I'm doing next week, what I'm doing next month, what I'll be doing in 6 months is part of that 5-year plan. And keep to it, keep to it. And you have to be, if you're going to do it and you want to potentially like get what it is you're after, I mean, you have to go all in. It's not a business that takes kindly to going in and like thinking there's some kind of a fail safe, some kind of backup plan. It doesn't really work like that. The people I know anyone I've known who's achieved anything in it, for the most part, like, you don't have the luxury of having a backup plan. You have to like bet everything on this. And that's why I say, if there's something else that makes you happy, maybe consider doing that first. It's not something you can kind of pursue part-time. Like, it's the kind of thing you have to be willing to like put all of yourself into. And it requires a lot of sacrifice and discipline. And even then, there's no guarantee. So.
Yeah. Well, I just read, there's this writer who literally just came out of nowhere He has a project that just came out on Netflix, and his life changed overnight because it was announced in a press release when they cast Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman that he was the writer of the new Batman with Matt Reeves. And he said, he basically said over Matt Tomlinson, I think is his name. He basically said overnight he was deluged with social media stuff, but he had said that he had been you talk about going all in. He had been writing 10 scripts a year on average for years, and he had bites. He's got like another film coming out, but I mean, he's already, besides the Batman, he's, working on a Mega Man adaptation. And
really? The video game they're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that video game.
Yeah, the movie he did was, it's on Netflix called Project Power, which I haven't written yet, but the directors of that, it's like a take on a superhero film.
Oh, okay.
And Jamie Foxx and Joseph Gordon-Levitt are in it. But those same directors are doing, I guess, Mega Man, and they've got him, and he's doing some sort of comic adaptation. But that's he just basically said he just plugged away. He said maybe 6 or 7 of them were absolutely crap, but he wrote 10 a year. And yeah, I mean I know I've begun over the last several years to get to know a lot more filmmakers, and it's not an easy business, and not to get sidetracked, but it's a business after I wanted to be in as a kid, and it was a chance encounter with a director a few years ago that made me finally re-up doing writing again. So I'm working on that.
Awesome.
But yeah. I just even to finish one thing is and then take it from there. But I've already got 5 other ideas. So
wow. Well, it's funny too. I talk a lot about luck, and I forget there's an old golfing legend who said that there's one of my favorite quotes of all time. So yes, it's luck, but it's the line is the harder I work, the luckier I get. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's true. I think it's a combination of all that, right place, right time. Like you're saying with the project you're talking about, the TV series. It's, if this pandemic didn't happen, would that be as viable to somebody?
Yeah. I don't know.
So, I mean, it's interesting that.
And nothing's for sure yet. So.
No, I know, but I'm saying the idea that it's a consideration, maybe more so because of it. It's just interesting how the world works in very odd ways.
That is true. And you got to take the long-term view.
Yeah. What would your best advice be to somebody directing their first film? Like before day one, what would be the one key thing you feel everybody needs to know before they go in on the first day to shoot?
Assuming you have like an awesome script and you're not
just making anything, quite frankly. What's like the one thing, like trust your cinematographer, trust your actors, or
that's hard.
Stay caffeinated, like whatever.
I mean, I would say the best thing you could do is have some mentors, some directors that and trust, and who have done the kind of work you want to do, and really spending some time with them. I mean, you can always get people will go out to coffee with you or get a meal. And I mean, the first time I ever directed something professionally, I don't even know, I probably had 5 different long conversations with people that were directors. I'd spent, I don't even know, weeks on various sets observing, shadowing directors. So, I think there's, you can learn a lot from other people's mistakes, and you have to have that, you have to be able to, put your own ego aside and not think you're just going to walk into a situation like that and direct it perfectly because you know what shots you want to get or whatever. There's so much more to it than that. And I think, spending the time to really learn from people that are smart and experienced it's so incredibly valuable. Oh, and the other one, that's on one side of it,
Yeah.
Number two, and this is going to be really dumb, and I get a lot of flack when I suggest this to people, but I stand by it, and I cannot tell you how much it helped me.
Yeah.
And it's a little cheesy and dated now, but read the book by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I
Okay.
dare say there is not a better book out there about the politics of a film set. I
Okay.
mean, it was, you know, those guys, I don't know, they were selling vacuum cleaners or something in the 40s, but the whole book, like the dynamics that book talks about
Mm-hmm.
are exactly the things that great directors know how to do with, you know, just helping navigate the personalities and the egos that are part of a highly creative, you know, stressful environment like a film set.
Okay, cool. All right, one final question, and I'll let you go.
Sure.
What is your routine during this kind of crazy time? What is your typical day like now that you're kind of are you writing? Are you just reading and soaking in things? What
Well,
during this crazy time?
I would say many months ago, I stopped doing the deep dives on the news. Like I limit my news intake to,
Yeah.
you know, I read it 10 or 15 minutes in the morning and 10 or 15 minutes at night. I think that's really important for maintaining one's sanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you actually, I myself get a much better perspective on what's really happening in reality by limiting that, because I think it's
Yeah.
easy to have your perception of what's going on get colored when one, you know, is soaking in all the time. So that's just one bit of advice. But I mean, in terms of my time management, you know, I try to do a little bit of exercise each day. I'm a bit of a night owl, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I guess because the world's so topsy-turvy right now, I've been able to really indulge that. So I typically write at night. Like I'll write, you know, I don't even want to say, but very into the wee hours of the night, if not all
Yeah.
night. That's just how I tend to work, and I feel the most creative in the midnight hours. So
Yeah.
so meaning I'm not up at the crack of dawn either. I
No,
live on a bit of a weird schedule, and
I have the same problem. If I'm asleep by midnight, it's shocking.
oh, I mean, I can't
I know you're
remember the
talking
last
about
time I've
later
been.
though.
Yeah, if I was to be, yeah, I cannot remember the last time probably the last time I was asleep at midnight was, you know, when I was directing The Current Occupant. Because when that's going on, when I'm, you know, when I'm making a movie, I'm very big about going to bed really early, getting
Well, you
out.
have to, and then because you got to
Yeah,
be up early.
you get up at 5 and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You can't be up until 3 and get up at 5.
No, God, that's and I'm like one of those people, like I need my 7-8 hours to
Yeah,
function.
yeah. No, I know what you mean. I need my 9 or 10.
Yeah, I mean, for me, because like, you know, in a way, the whole thing, it's, you know, there are elements of it that are liberating, because like,
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything else except the things that I really want to do. Like there's no social
Yeah.
obligations. There's not a lot of options. So I personally have felt very free to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Understandable. Well, Julius, I really thank you for taking the time today to talk with me.
Thank you, Brett.
I'm looking forward to this, whatever next project, if it's the show, if it's something else.
Thank you.
I quite honestly, and you know, it's always a crapshoot. Like, so most of the time I'll pursue people, and your associate, when he reached out to me, I was like, you know, I was like, okay. I mean, I'll look at it, and now I've been interviewing people for like 20 years.
Oh,
But I
wow.
just started doing this podcast thing
Yeah.
fairly recently. So I'm kind of like, you know, I was like, well, maybe I should kind of take it just because, you know, but to actually end up liking the
Thank you.
film, you know,
Thank
and
you.
it's no, you know, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't say anything.
Thank you. That's really nice of you to say.
So I encourage everyone watching this to go check out The Current Occupant on Hulu. And you know, almost everybody's got Hulu, so you know, go check it out now. All right, well, Julius, thank you
so
again.
much.
Stay safe and
You
good
too.
luck.
Okay. Thanks a
All
lot.
right, take care.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye.